CSfC is a very complicated platform. There's lots of decisions you have to make. There's numerous controls. There's numerous earn. These things are very difficult to get deployed. So, Cisco, Aruba, Dell, the MiFi hotspot, that looks simple. That can take 3 years to get accredited. So your average flash to bang for CSfC is between 24 months and 3 years. Some CSfC deployments just never happen. They just kind of die. And if you've been involved with CSfC, you may know of programs like this. I see a couple folks in the audience who have current CSfC deployments that are over 2 years old. This is what CSfC actually looks like. This is a relatively simple enterprise gateway. This is what we have deployed on island at the PwC. It doesn't look like this. It looks like this. And this is just the hardware. There are numerous virtual machines. There are numerous controls. This is a very complex environment to set up and manage. So one of the things about CSfC, especially if you're doing it homegrown, you're going to have passwords for everything. You have a password to unlock your hard drive. You have a password to unlock your device. You have a password for your first VPN. You have a password for your second VPN. You have a password for your end-user container. And what this winds up with is, user frustration. Nobody wants to log into a single device 4 or 5 times. And we see this all the time. And it's partially because if you don't build a product from the ground up to do CSfC, this is what you're left with. So there's a program requirement for NSA for something called a retransmission device. This means you have to carry a little MiFi puck with you, and you have to connect your device to that device, but you can't manage that device with the laptop. You have to manage that device with a third device, and so you wind up with a phone, a retransmission device that you manage from your phone, and then the EUD that talks to the retransmission device. And again, why are we doing this? All right, why? And the reason is security. The commercial solutions for classified is built on security, and there are problems connecting classified devices directly to the internet. So what do you do about that? The last thing is your first user on CSfC will be a very happy user. Very happy user. They're a very expensive user, but they're a very happy user. You start scaling your user community into the hundreds or thousands or now tens of thousands, you wind up with this. Things blow up. These networks collapse under the administrative overhead because CSfC systems are designed by principle to have next-generation firewalls in a service chain. Next-generation firewalls are incredibly complex devices to manage on their own, and when you stack complexity on top of complexity on top of complexity, you have this exponential problem of managing these devices. So in the CSfC context, firewall is firewall. It is a traffic filtering firewall. It's a Gen 1 firewall. VPN is VPN. I am terminating an IPsec connection to a VPN concentrator. Ask Cisco what their ASA 4100 does. It has hundreds or thousands of commands, thousands of features. All of these next-generation firewall vendors are innovating within their own product line, and they're innovating competitively. And CSfC said, I don't care about any of that. I want you to firewall for me. I want you to VPN for me. I want you to IDS, IDP for me. I don't want anything else. And so you wind up with these systems that are very complex. The only way around that is to create templated deployments, automation, where you can deploy the same thing every time. So why are we here? I'm going to talk about what the NSA CSfC program office is. I'm going to talk about barriers to enterprise deployment of CSfC. And I'm going to talk about, at the enterprise scale, the only way to do it right is to do it with purpose-built product. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the CSfC-enabled enterprise actually looks like. So, is everyone here familiar with CSfC? Do I need to go through this? Yeah? Can I get a show of hands? Who knows what the CSfC is? Okay, that's enough. I'm still going to talk about it. The CSfC is a program from NSA run out of the CSfC Program Management Office in Maryland. And it's basically a series of architectures and controls that if you implement them in the proper way will allow you to access data or store data on non-HAPI or ComSec devices. So I can use Dell laptop, Samsung phone to access my networks remotely. And essentially, there's 5 CPs. This is what NSA is trying to solve, right? They're trying to say, hey, I want to enable a Intel customer to have a campus WLAN. How do I do that? I want to enable SIP or work from home. I want to connect sites to each other. I want to be able to have data on a device or on a classified server, turn it off and not worry about it. I want to treat it like an unclassified device when it's powered down. And I want to have tactical implications for those various CPs. So what are your customers trying to solve? These two things are at odds, right? So who wants CSfC in 2025? Nobody, right? I want CSfC now, not tomorrow, not next day, today. So time to value. How do you CSfC faster, right? I'm aware I'm turning CSfC into a verb. It's also not CFSC, which I said for like 2 years. Customer experience. How do I give a user a device that's actually usable? I mean, does anyone here remember the SMEPED, right? It's an old Type 1 brick phone. Most people looked at that thing and they said, nah, bro. They put it in their desk drawer, they lock it up, gone. How do I scale? Like, how do I scale these devices? I see my DISA people back there in the booth, and their Windar program, they were the best we had talked to. They were deploying Windows devices in 4 or 5 hours apiece per device. Do the math. 10,000 clients, 50,000 hours, 25 FTEs doing nothing but deploying devices every year. Scalability. How do I scale this thing? How do I start with my very expensive user number 1 and then not have to redo everything for user number 10,000? How do I go from 1 to 10K? And also supportability. So I'm on the contractor side of the house in terms of like a product sales company. So I hate how the government and primes are left holding the bag after a TI does the work to install CSfC. TI stands for Trusted Integrator. These are folks who are qualified to install CSfC on behalf of the government. What you wind up getting is one smart person's best idea of how to do CSfC. No documentation, no support process. How do I actually O&M this thing? And how do I O&M it when people leave? And then also, I know you guys have seen this, there's CSfC solutions out there you just can't buy right now because the laptop it works on doesn't exist. And that's a continuing problem for people. And then the last thing I say, bespoke solutions causes bespoke problems. So if you hire someone really, really intelligent to build you a very complex infrastructure and you don't say, keep it simple, you're going to get a very complex thing that you're left holding the bag on. So, what are some lessons we've learned? So you're familiar with the CSfC. Your component selection drives your success. And things pop on and pop off the component list all the time. Because at the scale of Aruba and Cisco and other CSfC vendors, the NIAP Common Criteria certification just isn't that big of a deal. There's usually 1 or 2 people handling it, and if they get fired or quit, people will miss windows, they'll drop dates. So you want to partner with a technology company that CSfC is a key component of. You want to be vigilant on your component lifecycle. That's a typo, sorry. Your component lifecycle, when you're picking components as a TI or as a customer, you don't want to pick something that's been on the approved components list for 22 months, because 2 months after you buy it, it's off the list, and NSA says, sorry. You want to look at your capability packages as drafts. So when the NSA will publish draft CPs, there's not a good place, there's no notification for this. We actually built a web scraper that tells us when these things change, but you can go to the CSfC capability packages list, and they will have draft CPs underneath the formal CP on that website. If you're lucky enough to have a type authorization for a CSfC stack, use it, use it, use it. The ATO process is by far the most difficult and unpredictable part of a CSfC deployment. Props to the NSA. The CSfC PMO, if you do it right, they're not going to mess with you. They do not want to argue with you. Our submissions at ID Tech come back with corrections on grammar and spelling, which means they couldn't find any other problems, so we're actually really happy about that. But if you get it right the first time, you'll save yourself time on the back end. There is a fix for the registration process taking so long. If NSA has seen it before, or seen something very similar before, it's a whole lot easier to get that approved. So if you're talking to a TI, who else have you done it for, and what are you going to do for me? How do I tie what you've already done with the NSA to what you're going to deploy for me, so when the NSA reviewer sees my package, they're not going to be confused by what they see there, because that always takes longer. There's 100 and something TIs on the list. A lot of them are excellent. A lot of them have never deployed CSfC. So just ask your TI partner, where have you deployed before? And then finally, NSA compliance for controls is not STIG compliance. They're two separate things, and it will bite you on the ass when you're doing your ACAS scanning. From a design perspective, virtualize everything. Do not deploy, especially for mobile access, the hardware-specific stuff, and I'll tell you why. Rebuilding a Cisco ASAV for us is a button push. Rebuilding a Cisco 4100, if I have any CCN anythings in the room, it is a lengthy process, right? Look, these network vendors are awesome, their technology is awesome, but it's complicated and it takes time to deploy. If you virtualize it, you can automate it way easier. It also protects you if in 2 years, Aruba says, I'm just not going to certify the VMC, and you have to pick a secondary vendor. You don't have to buy new hardware. You deploy a new VM to that same hardware stack. It makes things like recovering from an outage much easier. All the good stuff about virtualization happens in CSfC. Unfortunately, you don't get to consolidate with CSfC because you have to have a single device being a single thing. So our implementation has a server running VMware, running a virtual VPN. Cool thing about that is you don't have to have very robust hardware because these VMs actually don't take a lot of system resources from a server perspective. Start with scale in mind. How am I going to scale? I'll give you a hint. We load balance IPsec. Because if you look at your typical stack of CSfC, your bottleneck, your only real bottleneck besides logging, is your IPsec throughput. And very few approved vendors support the notion of a N+1 cluster for IPsec. It's typically an HA pair. And so if you want to go from 100 meg to 10 gig, you're starting over again. So we load balance IPsec, we virtualize everything, and that lets us have a very flexible, very powerful infrastructure. This is part of our product, but anyone can do this. And if you're not buying from us, well, you should be, but if you're not buying from us, you should be doing these same things. And finally, a couple other things. The draft CP requirements, I'll come back here. The designs actually do change. They actually change the way the networks are laid out and the controls, and they do have design implications. So if you're contemplating a CSfC, and I'll send out copies of the presentation for anybody who wants it, but if you're contemplating a CSfC deployment, make sure you're looking at your draft CP because it takes a while, right? From your initial submission to registration, our average time is about 7 or 8 months from our initial submission. Some have gotten done as fast as 90 days. Some have taken 15 months. But the ones that have taken longer have been because CP changed, it affected our registration, we went to the bottom of the pile. So WLAN is interesting for me as a capability package. It definitely has a place, 100% has a place. And where I see it being useful is when you want to connect things besides EUDs to a classified network, printers, phones, etc. If you're just doing end user devices, use MACP and put it behind your black transport. There are just so many things you have to do with WLAN when you make it your outer layer of encryption. It makes it very complicated. It's better to just have a separate, black, color agnostic Wi-Fi transport controls and put your MACP behind that. And that also gives you the flexibility that if one day you have to go mobile, you can. So we have a lot of customers who say today, well, I want my people coming in the office, so why do I need to have classified mobility? Well, I mean, whether or not China engineered the coronavirus, they certainly could engineer a coronavirus. So we now have a blueprint for advanced persistent threats to cripple our economy and the DoD. And so, hey, fine, make them come to work. Come into the office. Bring your CSfC laptop. When COVID happens, you're not off your feet. Also, if you're an integrator, think about recruiting, right? I want to be able to hire people in Bozeman, Montana, San Antonio, Texas. I mean, classified resources in DC are expensive. Classified resources in Hawaii are even more expensive. So the last thing I talk about, every CSfC user, by definition, is an important user. So in addition to CSfC, you should be thinking of their attribution on the network because you make them a target. Every time you send someone into a theater that's not the US running IPsec, they are instantly a target. And our adversaries have no problems going after families, bank accounts, jobs, right? They will do whatever they can to hack the person instead of the actual communications. So we always recommend pairing a CSfC implementation for MACP to a managed attribution platform like our Camo product. There's a product called Fognigma. There's a lot of the integrator communities have their own implementations of managed attribution. Wrap up IPsec and TLS, WireGuard, something like that. Easy to do, doesn't cost a lot, and makes your user's life a whole lot easier. So what makes the enterprise different? I've alluded to this a little bit. Scale, right? Going from 1 user to 10,000 users is hard, and it's more than 10,000 times harder. Complexity. When I say complexity, I don't necessarily mean the complexity of the CSfC solution. I'm talking about integrating with enterprise certificate authorities, integrating with enterprise SIEMs, integrating with enterprise identity management services, right? So do I install cross-domain to collapse my gray logs into red so I have an integrated picture of what's happening on the CSfC stack? So that's complex. But really, it's because IT is forever, right? Once you deploy this, you're never done. IT is never finished. It's like breathing. So if you build something like this and you don't build it to be run and upgraded over and over again, you lose something. And what you lose is agility. You lose the ability to attack the mission where you need to. So Archon, the company that I work for, was acquired by CACI back in December. So we're now the Archon product group at CACI, and I run that product team. We're the only end-to-end CSfC solution. So we're a TI, we provide the back end, we provide the EUD, we provide the retransmission device. We have the only solution out there that you can say, give me CSfC, and as a product. Plenty of integrators do a great job of deploying CSfC as a project. But when you deploy CSfC as a project, you go back to those problems I talked about earlier where, hey, I'm done, it's yours now, good luck. So if you're gonna go that route, make sure that lifecycle is part of what you're thinking about. It's easy. We're easy. We take care of everything for you. We do the NSA registration, we do the ATO, we do the deployment. We can even manage the actual IT infrastructure itself. We're doing that for DoD, we're doing that for law enforcement. And you know, as a vendor, I'm excited to see more and more people coming out talking about CSfC lifecycle issues, but we're still the only people who have done this. We've done this for 10 customers now as enterprise deployments. CSfC for 1 user is easy. CSfC for 5,000 users, very hard. So, purpose-built solutions. We make basically 3 product groups, 8 products themselves. Archon ZV is our laptop. It's a appliance. You buy it from Dell, like a regular SKU. It's on soup. It looks like commodity IT. Once you've deployed the back end, you can buy them one at a time for all we care. Archon Mobile. So this is a retransmission device on the back of my phone. So my phone sleeve runs its own Wi-Fi LTE processor and qualifies as a CSfC solution. There's probably nothing more annoying than currently fielded CSfC mobility solutions because you usually have a phone that your other phone talks to, and that's your retransmission device. And by the way, that's not compliant. That's a deviation. Archon Sidearm, this is our integrated retransmission device. So our retransmission device for the laptop actually is inside the laptop. It's an M2 card. It's a completely standalone computing device. It uses the laptop's integrated Wi-Fi. You manage the retransmission device from the laptop, so your user has no idea that they're carrying a retransmission device. Sidearm is our Cube product. So we have a very small CSfC VPN client that's about the size of, yeah, you've seen it. It's tiny. It's smaller than a box of cigarettes. Go Silent is our managed attribution platform. So we maintain a network in the field. It is a publicly known environment. So we're not obfuscation. We're managed attribution. We also have an obfuscation product called Camo, which is significantly more capable and significantly more complex. Archon Data Center, now called Archon Gateway. This is our back end. All that stuff you saw on the PwC bill of materials, there's about 300 parts in that. That's one part number. And if you're an IT maintainer, think about how hard it is to get quotes every year from all these vendors just to extend your maintenance, right? So you buy one data center SKU. It comes integrated, ready to use from us. We have these in stock today. So you want one, I can take a check today. Second, there's one SKU for the back-end maintenance. So instead of having to maintain 12, 15, 16 different contracts, you maintain one contract with us. And when it's not our IP, we maintain the contract with the vendor on the back end. Archon Edge, this is our deployable kit. We have cookie cutter sizes from the size of basically a KG Nano all the way up to a class deployable kit. This is our multi-site deployable. We've deployed these for 3 customers now. And then Archon Manager, this is probably the unsung hero of the Archon stack. We have a integrated, sophisticated certificate management lifecycle. So we deploy certs over the air to our laptop. And there's only a couple vendors in the market that do this. We're the only one that is a end-to-end solution. But we have full over-the-air configuration management, and we integrate with ISC, Red Hat, Microsoft, whoever. Just a couple of benefits we offer. Our provisioning process is super fast. It takes about 5 minutes once you unbox the laptop to make it ready for CSfC. Final provisioning can be done in highly parallel fashion. So we, typically speaking, will have a 24-port switch. You plug all your laptops into it, turn them on, into the service tag, they deploy themselves. Enterprise IT management, over-the-air updates of address, certificate rekey. We also offer remote wipe. This is cool. How do you remote wipe a box that has to connect to a classified infrastructure to tell itself to remote wipe, right? That's a hard problem to solve. We can actually do that over the air. We use the IRD as part of that decision tree. So we send a command to the IRD flips a bit, the host EUD looks for that state, and if it sees that bit flipped, it kills itself. And that happens offline. Because the IRD is on the USB hub, it always has power. So you can kill a laptop that a user thinks is off. And then our standards-based approach. All of our customers have the same thing. So from PwC to NavAir to DoD to Army, our CSfC stack looks the same for all of our customers. So when we see a problem with accreditation or a security vulnerability, we know about it from one customer and we can instantly go out and talk to all of our other customers. It also makes us extremely familiar to the NSA, and our ATO paperwork is essentially done. So all we have to do is basically write your name here kind of thing. Now I'm radically oversimplifying that, but it's significantly easier with our approach than with other approaches. So the last thing, everything we build supports all 3 transport CPs as well as the enterprise grade annex. We are not your provider if you want one user on CSfC. That's not what we do. We do enterprise scale CSfC. Doesn't mean we can't go tactical, but we do it at scale. So. But wait, there's more. So that's actually the end of my presentation, my formal presentation. So I'm going to turn it over for questions. If you're doing this, just make me flip through. I think that's pretty funny. Yes.
List data at rest. Is there anything specific for data in motion?
So when I say data in motion, I mean like network transmission. Is that what you're talking about? Like a network-based encryption? That's what these CPs are for. So you can stream over what WLAN, cellular, site-to-site connectivity. So if I have a sensor platform in the sky, and I have CSfC clients running on that sensor platform, I can stream my 8K video live over CSfC to my base station. Does that address your? Okay. Oh, I did not do a good job up here, did I? so you think about, yeah. No, we're not part of the DISA stack. Windar is probably one of the more mature homegrown solutions, right? But it is homegrown, and that means that DISA hired some really smart people from an integrator to build a platform. They didn't build it like a product, and that's really the only. And product is different than project. I mean, it just is. And CSfC is something like you can't take a DoD HR system and make it a product, right? That's a project or a platform. But you can make CSfC a product, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you. We are trying to commoditize. We're trying to make, our mission is to make CSfC easier to acquire, scale, and use. That's our mission statement. And so we're trying to commoditize, exactly. Any other questions?
So what you're saying, this is pretty much as a service, right?
Yeah, so think about like AT&T. You pay for your phone. You don't buy a phone, buy a SIM, pick a carrier, sign a contract, pick a second carrier, pick a second company to help be your troubleshoot. You just say, AT&T, give me a phone, right? And so when you say, Dylan, Archon, CACI, give me CSfC, we can do it the same way, where you pay a single cost per user per month.
And then with that said, at enterprise level, as a service, what do you require from the customer? Do we have to give you a secure data center? Is this something that you already have?
We badly want a classified customer who's brave enough to forge ahead on this partnership to let us host a CSfC environment. We haven't found that yet. Most folks are already nervous enough about CSfC that we say, you know what, it's 3 racks, just put it in my data center. I'll get your guys cleared, your girls cleared to come in and operate the gear. So today, CSfC as a service for us looks like COGO, or COCO. Contractor owned, contractor operated, but it's on your premises today. Yeah. We are working with Amazon and Azure to create a IL6 gateway. So we doorstep in front of like, I won't say the location names out here, but they have peering points, right? They have meet me locations. We do work with them to create that. I mean, I think that is an awesome capability for any customer because it means that you don't have to, you can just say, hey, ID Tech, send me a IL6 laptop. It shows up at your door ready to use. Pretty awesome. But no one has done that yet. Those are structural and accreditation boundaries, not technology boundaries.
Another question. So backside of your CSfC, the enterprise side, the stack, it's hard to get smart people to. How do you get over the proper points of exams or any of the other?
How do I get over what? I'm sorry.
How do you get up service delivery location?
Sure. Yeah. So those are we do offer a full end-to-end solution. We'll provide a POP, we'll provide last mile transport, we'll provide the SIM cards, we'll do all of it. So far, no customer has taken us up on that. Customers are providing us a POP.
So we can bring our own POP and say,
100%. Yes. Yep. Highly recommend using the internet as one of those POPs if you can, because it's very resilient. Yeah, I mean, you've got Leo, Mio, and I mean, the internet is becoming extremely robust and very difficult to compromise as a service. And it just kind of accelerates the validity of CSfC as a tactical transport or in a tactical use case. I mean, Starlink is hard to take down. And when Kuiper gets up there and the other Leo and Mio constellations happen, it's going to become impossible. Did you have another question?
I have another question. Yeah, so you said it's your enterprise, so you have to scale. What size of the enterprise? 40,000, 50,000?
So our largest customer today is about 5,000 concurrent users. But at that scale, the difference between going from 1 to 100 is hard. 100 to 1,000 is real hard. 1,000 to 5, 10,000 is the test. Once you're managing 5,000 users, it's going to 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. The way we scale, we load balance, right? So we scale horizontally. We don't really have an upper limit to the amount of users we could support on a single gateway. I think a practical limit's probably about 10,000 concurrent connections. But if you wanted to do 50,000 and went through one location, it certainly will scale to that level. Yeah. So one of our customers was interested in us putting CSfC at Tampa, Canon, Stuttgart, and Japan, and Hawaii, right? So that became kind of a global gray, if you will, enterprise deployment of CSfC. So depending on how you define it, global gray for me means multi-tenancy CSfC, and we do not have that. We haven't found two AOs willing to play nice. That's your barrier. Now, we might have it out here soon, like cross fingers. The community out here has been awesome, but we don't have it today. But there's no reason we couldn't. CSfC supports natively the concept of multiple reds. We do have customers installing multiple red environments today. So there's no real barrier to that except for just sort of inertia.
Use case analysis. Has anybody come up with a white paper on your use case of CSfC?
Yeah, we have several.
The DoD, I'm really interested in the Army side if you have.
So yeah, it's on our website. I'm happy to provide that information to you. CAD Art will get that for you. But the one that's really driving the enterprise interest has been COVID. That really did sort of like say, oh hell, what do I do in a deny when I can't get out my facility? So that's what's driving the CSfC use case for work from home. But there's a lot. I mean, look, I'll tell an anecdote. We were on an Army facility, and the CSfC data center was about as big as my friend Cliff here, right? So our users could not be in the same place as our stack. And what they were going to do is cut a trench across the street, lay fiber, run HAPE encryption, and put our admins in another office. And we said, whoa, we don't have to do that. We'll put a couple VPNs over there, and we'll use the base WLAN, and we'll put our users over here. And so there's all kinds of use cases like that. I mean, think classified, right, or the IC. IC work from home, not happening. But if I work from the cafeteria or from the auditorium or the library or the lab, I can. I'm not tied to a workstation in place. So there's several different use cases, and I think we have white papers on most of those. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Can you explain a little more what that RCP is? Like how it actually is?
Yeah. So there's so all of CSfC is essentially predicated on doubling your encryption, right? And there's several flavors of DAR, but essentially there's two variables. There's a file-based encryption and a volume-based encryption. And you can do file at the operating system level basically only, but you can do the block encryption as either software or hardware. So think about like our file encryption product, Cyber Reliant, Windows Edge Guard, sitting on top of a certified CSfC hard drive. You could also do a Windows BitLocker on top of a CSfC certified hard drive. Yeah. So that's to your point. If you have a device and you're not using a thin client, if the device is on, it's a red device and all the rules of handling apply to it. If you're using thin client, it's only classified when it's connected. So if you have a user who's at an airport who's not connected for some reason and their PC's on or their client's on, it's not considered a classified device.
And just to verify, so I have a CSfC device. It's in the Kona side. I think we're using 9, actually. I'm testing it. And they gave me a regular laptop, but they said, well, it's turned off. So that's not a thin client, but they turned it into a thin client.
Yeah. So thin client, thick client is really about a model of computing, right? Is my client-side computing happening locally or in the data center? You can definitely install a thin client application on a Windows 10 device, and that's actually fairly common. And the same rules apply to the CSfC is not saying it has to be a wise thin client with a built-in operating system or something like that. They're saying, hey, if your client data lives in the data center, it's classified while you're connected. If your client data lives on the device, it's classified while it's on. Visor. Oh, sick. Right. Nice. We do have a DAR option for Visor. Okay, sorry. Any other questions?
How many CSfC deployments do you have? Like the total number of users that you use?
So we have 9 deployments. We probably have 30,000 users-ish, maybe 35 out there deployed. Our largest is in the federal law enforcement space. And we're in that 30 to 35 range on about 9 locations.
And I just want to clarify, you have separate stacks for each one of your clients.
We do, yes. Now, believe me, I would love to have just CSfC like on Amazon. How cool would that be? Click CSfC, here's your laptop. But we just haven't found a customer who's willing to take that jump. Yeah. And there's really, I mean, if you have a data center, might as well use it. Like, Equinix is expensive. I mean, I'm paying $1,000 a month per kilowatt of power to be an Equinix. If you have a good data center, good data center comms team, and you have space, let's use your space, right? I mean, why not? It's just, I mean, cloud is a location, not a thing, right? Other questions? All right, guys. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it. And if you have any, if you have any questions and you want to catch me after the show, I'll be hanging out for a few minutes after the show. It's not a show. After the presentation, I'll be hanging out for a few minutes. So if you want to talk one-on-one, you're welcome to do that.